This is the Bible Ranger, Evolution versus Creation, episode 93. This is probably the last one of this evolutionary series. What gave fire to evolution? That should be pretty interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, let's start with Galileo. Born in 1564, he wanted originally to be a priest, and he was pressured by his father to go into a career of medicine. Now he ended up being a philosopher, an astronomer, and a mathematician, and considered father of modern science. Now he was famous for a few things, but one of the things was heliocentrism, which is the thing that got him in trouble, where the earth rotates around the sun. And you're thinking, what's so strange about that? Well, back then the Catholic Church was basically believed that the earth was the center of everything, okay, and around the earth. This is something where it becomes a tradition, and they mix up traditions with the Bible. We have to be careful with that. Traditions are not as important as what the Bible says. Then Pope Urban the Eighth, he said, don't publish these writings, because I mean that's not right. And basically he put him under house arrest for, I don't know, many years. But through time, Galileo smuggled his findings that got published in other places, other countries. All right, enough is enough. Galileo was a Catholic believer, and he said something like mathematics was God's language in the universe. Not bad, right? But his mistreatment and the countless others through the hundreds of years of the medieval tortures of the Catholic Church and the mischaracter of representing God is wearing thin on the people. Who wouldn't get upset with that? Like Sir Francis Bacon, for one, was a person of interest, and others. And then they came up with ideas, and they came up with books, and groups of people formed. That was counter the religious system and counter the people, the monarchs, like the kings. Okay, and they came up with this idea, basically, what is the restricting force that is stopping us from growing? And they said, God was. And of course, represented by the church at that time, of the Catholic Church, and the monarchs. So, in addition to that, they had a weak king back then, Louis XVI, and a bunch of little things happened, like a little chain things. Like they were having trouble, Queen Marie Antoinette was having trouble having children with him because he had a condition at first that was later diagnosed and several years later fixed, and they can have children then. But that was part of the energy. She was blamed for saying something like, when they were going hungry, let them eat cake, and she didn't, but she got blamed for that. And there was high taxes on the poor and little to no taxes on the rich, kind of what's going on today, okay? And they were also hungry, and all that just came up with the French Revolution, or rather ignited the French Revolution. Now in the French Revolution, the new philosophy is no God, only reason was accepted. They even paraded a pretty woman on a throne as the goddess of reason, like shown in this picture here. Okay? In 1789, the Age of Enlightenment was born, or the Age of Reason. It's kind of the same thing, okay? And basically it's an intellectual and philosophical movement. And that sounds pretty good, right? Well, that led to the invention of the guillotine. It was for merciful killing. That way people don't have to suffer in the act of execution, okay? They've removed everything to do with God, even the word saint, anywhere in the streets and in the churches. The atheism was now taught weekly in churches because churches were basically taken over. There was nobody allowed to practice worshiping God. Bibles were burnt in public. Crosses were removed. Stained windows were even destroyed if it had anything to do with God, or broken. Even the plaques were removed. And something later, they even changed the calendar. Okay, they had a 10-day week to avoid Christians from worshiping, confuse them from Sundays, I guess. And they promoted their own beliefs, their own gods, their own deity, the God of reasoning, the liberty, it was called. And in 1793, they executed King Louis XVI. Now look how fast things happen here. The same year, 3 months later, they created something called the Committee of Safety. Sounds nice, huh? The Committee of Safety, okay. About 4 or 5 months later, they had something called the Reign of Terror, which lasted about 2 to 3 years. And this is a total blood bath. And if you just start looking into it, they don't really tell you the whole details of it. They kind of hide it. They were Christians. They just say people. Okay, so I had to kind of dig kind of deep to find out they're actually Christians. Most of these people are Christians that are being killed. And the same month, about a week and a half later, they had something called the De-Christianization of France, which they killed 17,000 Christians and Catholics in there too. It's a mixture. Basically, many priests and nuns were killed while praying on their knees. Christians were gathering in the office, excuse me, not the office, the forest to worship, were found out, and they were hung in trees, like something like this. Disgusting, but this is what happened. They took Queen Marie Antoinette, that was already basically in a dungeon. She was executed. Even the leaders that started the French Revolution were killed. Even the inventor of the guillotine was executed. And I'm not laughing, it's just the ironicness of it. When you have this mob mentality and is energized by demonic forces, this is what happens. A man without God is there's no rules. All right, modern evolution, the origin. The Age of Enlightenment focused on the fields of science, which was good, right? But it also opened a door to evolutionary thinking. There was a man named Charles Lyell, which is about 100 years apart from Darwin, okay? But he had this theory called the uniformitarianism, basically that the world is very old and the changes on Earth happen very slowly, in millions of years, not thousands of years. So when you have that, and you have Darwin that took his book and his voyages to the Galapagos Islands, that, well, this could be millions of years, and then Darwin saw that the finches look a little bit different, okay, which we call microevolution. Microevolution is not a problem. Like different species of dogs is not a problem, but they're still a bird, okay? So he put that together with the finches, and Darwin was saying, well, evolution is definitely possible because it's a very old Earth. They just modified what Charles Lyell was saying himself. He added to it. All right, little extra bonus. The Age of Enlightenment made it to America too, because at those times, at the time of the French Revolution, the founding fathers that was getting help from France, one of the reasons France was kind of hurting for money, they kind of brought in a little bit of that Enlightenment with them. And many of our founding fathers were Christians, but some of this Enlightenment got into them, okay? And that's why you can see that our founding fathers have a lot of writings that are Christian based. And then they have writings that are deist based. And basically, deist is a belief. They do believe in a supreme being as a creator, but the supreme being is not active in the universe. Basically, he kind of left us alone. Now, professing Christians' views can be found in the writings of our founding fathers, and also liberal professors can also pull out their deist writings too from the founding fathers, and they can say, no, they were deists, they weren't Christians. So it's like he said, she said, okay? But many founding fathers eventually went back to the original views. But the damage was done. There's writings for them on both sides. Look at this writing here. It says, if liberal college professors don't discriminate against conservatives, then why do conservative students get lower grades? Don't be fooled. This is very important. Evolution is a distraction. It is a religion. It has no purpose for mankind other than survival. It weakens your belief in the Bible, and it keeps us from God. In 2 Peter chapter 3, these are condensed, these 4 verses here, 4 or 5 verses. In the last days, scoffers, being ruled by their own lust, and they're basically going to be saying something like, things haven't changed. I should have said haven't changed since the beginning. Where's the promise of this coming? In other words, Jesus? It's been like 2,000 years. Okay? And basically the Bible says they are willingly ignorant of God's creation. The reason why, there's plenty of proof. But there's enough out there where if you twist it, it can sound like there's no God. So they're willingly ignorant, so they don't want to be accountable to God. If there's a God, there's a judgment out there. And that judgment is going to happen to everybody that doesn't have God. So that's the most important thing. Okay? You have to be ready to meet the Lord. You have to be ready to follow him. Okay? And check out Romans and check out 1 John there. Okay? You have to confess with the Lord. You have to be a follower of Christ. And that's important. There's nothing else more important than that. So if you found this video to be helpful, please pass it along, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and share it. Okay? This is the Bible Ranger, keeping the Bible simple yet rich in content. Thank you very much.